I'm Beth Padgett. I'm the editorial page editor of the Greenville News, and I do a lot of these school board forums and other forums at political season time. We have our three candidates for State Superintendent of Education, Mr. Ed Murray from the American Party, Molly Spearman from the Republican Party, and Dr. Tom Thompson from the Democratic Party. As Irvin said, you've got a detailed set of information about their biographical information on your seats, and they will probably find ways to expertly weave in a few details about themselves as they begin talking. The questions have been given to the candidates in advance, the three questions I'm going to ask, so that will not be any surprise to them. We're going to rotate the order so everybody has a chance to go first and everyone has a chance to go last, so someone's not always having to be the first one to answer the questions. We'll start with Mr. Murray and go down the panel, and then I'll mix it up after that. Many people, based on national rankings, many people think our schools in South Carolina do poorly. That's also the public perception of many people in South Carolina and outside of South Carolina. Why do you think that perception exists and those rankings consistently show poor performance in South Carolina?
Well, I think one of the things that we need to look at is the level of innovation that we're able to create here in South Carolina. What I've seen actively being in the schools is a lot of adoption of things that are being done in other states. My point on innovation is if we're doing the same thing that every other state is doing to try and improve scores in our classrooms and to try and improve the performance of our students, if the other states are making incremental improvements and we're making incremental improvements, we're going to stay exactly where we're at, which is 48th in the nation. We've got to be more innovative and develop our own ways that are tailored to our students' needs, to our students' interests in order to move them forward. It doesn't mean that we can't use good ideas from other places, but we've got to take our students into consideration, where they're coming from and where they need to go, and create the changes that are necessary there. We also see issues with motivation in our students. Our students have been turned off by testing, if you will. They're becoming more and more apathetic because they know every day they come to school that ultimately the only thing the school and the school district is concerned about are test scores. And we've got to get away from that process and get back to talking to them about the value of an education and what we need to do to help them be well-rounded human beings who are prepared for the life that they face. I also see in our schools a minimalization effect, where students are satisfied with doing the bare minimum to get by. Even our good students do just what they need to do to get an A. And that's not pushing them forward. And we've got to figure out ways to motivate them and push them to be the best that they can be, not to just get that A by doing the least amount that they have to do. I also have to tell you that social promotion is alive and well in South Carolina. Otherwise, I would not have students in my physics class at high school who are reading at a third grade level. That's the only way they can get that far in school, is if we're socially promoting our students, because we're afraid to hold them back. What we need to recognize is that all students do not learn at the same rate. Maybe we need to look at an innovation that says we have a flexible 120 to 240 day school year, where some students can complete their work in 120 days and be ready to move on. Other students need a full 240 days because they progress more slowly, and we need to be open to those sorts of innovations. I've also looked at the standardization of our curriculum. In our schools, we're expecting every classroom to be exactly the same, do exactly the same thing, teach exactly the same material in exactly the same way. That doesn't work. As a physics teacher, I would have a lesson plan. I would go into class knowing what I wanted to do, knowing what concept that I wanted to get across to my students, but I would teach it a different way in 3 different blocks a day. Every block had its own personality, and I had the academic freedom in my classroom to be able to do that. That academic freedom is being taken away from our teachers, where they're being given very structured lesson plans. People are coming in and observing them and not penalizing them for not teaching the subject, but penalizing them for not having a word wall up, or penalizing them for not having a lesson plan in the door that the students never look at. It's only for visitors coming into the classroom. But teachers are getting penalized for that. So that standardization is having an impact on holding us back and preventing our motivation and our innovation. And finally, I believe centralization of control is one of the big problems. With No Child Left Behind, since No Child Left Behind, we've seen more and more centralization of control of our classrooms. And that is not a good effect. You know, we have to trust that our teachers are professionals, that they know their subject matter, and that they're going to be able to convey that subject matter to their students more effectively than anybody can tell them how to do it, because they know their students. So those are some of the reasons why I believe we're still low in the rankings, but some of the things that we can do, some of the things that we can change to move us forward and really look at that target of where we want to be and move South Carolina forward in education. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Molly Spearman?
Thank you all so much for being here tonight. This is so impressive to see this audience, and it tells me why Greenville is so successful. When you have the support of the business community and folks in the community and interested enough to come out on a Monday afternoon to talk about education in South Carolina, it explains a lot. I'll take a little different angle to answer this question. Why do we do so poorly? We don't always do poorly. There are places in South Carolina that we're doing very well, and this is one of them, right here in Greenville. There are other areas of the state where we have tremendous challenges, and the reason generally is poverty and children not having the resources nor the nurturing that they need to be ready to start school and to be successful in school. Can they learn? Absolutely. But I believe that the reason that we're not being as successful as we could be is that we haven't really done what we need to do in those areas. And the only way that those students are going to be successful is to have a high quality instruction in their classroom. It means high quality teachers. That's the most important thing. High quality teachers, high quality principals. And how do you attract them and get them to stay in those communities? That's been a real challenge. We've tried some different things. Back in the Education Accountability Act, we put in teacher specialists, and we actually paid people salary and a half to go into the very remote rural areas of South Carolina, where you're about an hour away from a Walmart. And folks would go for a year or two, but they didn't want to stay. So how do we fix it? I think it's a real challenge. I think there's some things on the horizon that can help. I think we have to use our high quality virtual education that's available now through and improve the infrastructure of technology in these rural areas so that we can pump in really high quality instruction. I think we have to partner districts like your great district here in Greenville. I think we need to partner Greenville with Williamsburg or counties where they don't have the resources and let them learn from what you're doing here. And as State Superintendent of Education, I think my role will be to spotlight the programs that are working. We do have areas in this state, high poverty schools, that are performing better and quite well. And we have to look at what they're doing and replicate it. I think one of the main things is, as I said, the high quality instruction, but I think we've been fooling ourselves to think that we can do that and bring children up who have been at risk and who have not had all the nurturing that they need to perform well, that we can do that in the same amount of time, 180 days, that other children go to school. We've got to look at more time on tasks, after school programs, and maybe even year-round school in these areas, in these very rural areas where students are at risk. So the why we're there, I think is pretty obvious. The how to correct it is not quite as obvious, but I think we have pockets of excellence that we can get ideas from and make improvements.
Thank you. Dr. Thompson.
I too want to thank you for being here on this is Monday, right? It's been a long race. On a Monday evening, nice environment, and it is impressive to have all of you here that represents an interest in public education. I think that we have a myriad of problems that contribute to the issue of our public school district's ranking as it is. Where I would send you to look at what some of those reasons are would be the annual kids count information that is put out, and I happen to have some of that data that I'd like to go over with you that I think will give you a clear picture of why we are where we are. First and foremost, as we look at kids count, it indicates that we are, in terms of child well-being, and that includes the area of economic well-being, educational well-being, health well-being, and family and community well-being. We are 45th in the country, according to kids count, in terms of child welfare, child well-being. That puts us at the bottom. Nationally, according to kids count, 16 million children live in poverty. And that's gotten worse than it was in 2003. 23 million have parents who lack secure employment. And we know the value of parents having jobs, parents being employed, and our socioeconomic status and its connection to academic performance in our schools. 4 million are not attending preschool. 4 million children. 66% of the fourth graders are not proficient in reading. That's across the country. But that's gotten better. And 9 million live in high poverty areas. 9 million children. In South Carolina, 27% live in poverty. That's 300,000 children. 36% of the children's parents lack a secure employment. That's 400,000. 57% of the children, early age children, are not in preschool. That's 67,000. And 72% of our fourth graders are not proficient in reading. That tells you why we are where we are as a state in terms of public education. That we have to do a better job putting children first, making sure that we are putting in measures to guarantee their future. It has to do not only with what we're doing in school, but it has to do with our perspective on the importance of children and their future outside of school. Jobs are important. The educational system, the quality of the educational system is important. When we are guaranteeing, only guaranteeing children, and we seem to be proud of it, a minimally adequate education, that shows. That shows here in South Carolina, it shows around the country. So we have to move away from that language in our Constitution and guarantee our children what they deserve, a high quality education, not just in Greenville, not just in Lexington County, but across the state. Our public education system is the bedrock of economic development in this state. Where there's a high quality education system, jobs are attracted, companies are attracted to the state. Companies coming into the state mean jobs. Jobs mean that we have additional money in our pockets that we can put towards other things, hopefully back into public education. So we have to work not only within the system, and within the public school system, but within our communities to make sure that our children are getting what they deserve to have so that they are ready for school, and that when that happens, that we are prepared to take them the rest of the way so that they graduate with workforce skills or the ability to go and be successful at higher ed or whatever their next decision is.
Thank you very much. We'll start with Molly Spearman on this. All three of you have mentioned some solutions to the problems that we've identified so well. Tell us what needs to be done to improve our educational system, and specifically address this. What can the legislature the governor's office, the executive branch, and one of you as state superintendent of education. What can the those three areas or people do to improve education?
Well, it's great, and I have to admit I'm a little nervous speaking in front of Secretary Riley, a man I admire. He's done the epitome of what a leadership in education should be in our state, and thank you for being here tonight. And I know both my colleagues feel the same way here. I think what's been missing for a while, probably since 1984, when Governor Riley was there or similar, it's been a long time since we've all been behind a common vision for what we need to do in public education in our state. I'm not sure that the legislature has really ever had a vision joined with the governor, the state superintendent of education, the business community, the state board of education, Education Oversight Committee. But I have to tell you all, I feel very, very optimistic, because what I'm seeing over the last few years, and particularly out campaigning, I think the stars are really aligning in our state, and we're on the verge of really doing some great things. And that is coming together behind a common vision of what we need to do in public education. It started just a few years ago with the 12 superintendents, district superintendents, who got together and started talking about what should the 21st century graduate know? What do they need to know to be successful? They started working on a vision and found out the State Chamber of Commerce was doing the same thing, and they got together, and together now have adopted this profile of the 21st century graduate that not only talks about the content knowledge that what our graduates need, but the characteristic, the work skills, and also the soft skills that we hear from our business folks that are missing so often. How to show up to work on time, how to collaborate, all those things that make you successful, not just at work, but as a citizen. And so we've come together with an initiative called Transform South Carolina. I've been very honored to be a part of that. And Greenville County is part of that as well. But there are other places in our state where this same type of changing the paradigm of how we deliver instruction is going on in our public schools. And I hear legislators saying, tell us what we need to do to help. Tell us what laws we need to get rid of or pass to make you be more successful. Tell us what regulations are keeping you from changing the system so that you can be more successful. And so I'm very, very optimistic, and my goal as state superintendent would be to pull all the stakeholders together. I think first you got to know what you want to do, and that's to be sure that we all have the same vision, that every student when they graduate from a South Carolina high school is prepared to be successful either for college, probably technical school, because that's where so many of our jobs are now, the military, and to be a productive citizen. So I hope that in the next year we can align behind this, and I would envision talking to the chair of the House Education Committee, Ways and Means, Senate Education, Senate Finance, to be sure that the policies that are addressed in those committees would support that vision. Same thing with the executive branch or the governor's office, and certainly from the Department of Education, that we would establish a culture of service at the Department of Education to work with districts, to support districts that they can be successful in that vision. And I'd hope that the business community and parents would come along with that. And I'm very optimistic.
Thank you. Mr. Thompson, same question. What improvements are needed, and how can the governor, the legislature, and state superintendent of education work together to achieve those improvements?
Well, I'm not sure that we do have a common vision. Over the last 3 years, we probably had the worst period for public education that we've had in a long time. We see falling test scores. We see a tremendous amount of talk about vouchers, tax credits, backdoor grants. It seems to be talking about everything we can do to take resources and children out of public ed, as opposed to building up our public education system to where it is the strongest that it can possibly be. As I indicated, that's the bedrock to economic development in the state. And until that entity is as strong as it can possibly be, that's where the focus needs to be. The legislature can start by changing the language in the Constitution. We shouldn't be promising our children just a minimally adequate education, but a high-quality education. If we get that language changed in the Constitution, then that becomes the basis on which we fund the base student costs in our finance formula. If we can get that language changed and the money figure attached to a high-quality education as opposed to a minimally adequate education into our base student costs, then all of our school systems will be on a more secure revenue track, including our highest need school districts, because that money goes directly into the operation budget that gives them the flexibility to do the kinds of things that they need to do to make sure that our children are receiving a high-quality education. Of course, the funding formula is a lot more complicated than that, but that basic change, I think, will make a huge difference. The legislature can start there. The governor can start by supporting that initiative. And as state superintendent, my job is to advocate for what our children need, so that the governor and the legislature know what are the needs of the public school system and how those needs can be addressed. I think we have to start with three basic principles. One, that we put children first. Two, our children deserve the best, not just the best that we can give them, because we may fall a little short, but the best possible. Anything less than that handicaps our children. Two, that we have to believe, like all children can learn, all schools can be excellent schools if given the proper resources. So we need to provide the resources for schools to be excellent. And that not only includes money, but it includes outstanding teachers, resources, technology, a curriculum that is both challenging and engaging, and on and on. And third, that an effective leader and effective state superintendent of education has to be honest and unselfish. It is not about the person that is in that job. It's about children. It is about the school districts. It's about the state. We make the school system the best possible. Our state benefits. Our children benefit. A systematic approach to looking at how we do that is required. Two things there. I think we have to invest in early childhood education, and my proposal is early childhood education, birth to kindergarten. I think we have to be involved in making sure that children from the very beginning receive the kind of experiences that they need to have to guarantee, to get them ready for success when they hit the school experience, when they hit kindergarten. At the same time, we work on parents to make sure that they're ready to have their children in school, so that they know what the expectations are. They can work with the school, they can work with the teachers to make sure that their children will be successful. If we've got the parents ready, we've got the children ready, and we've got a curriculum that is both challenging and engaging, we can take the students the rest of the way to graduation, make sure that they are career ready, as well as being ready for higher education or whatever else the next step is.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Murray, same question.
I too, like Molly, believe we have to have a vision of what a 21st century education should be. We all have to be working towards a common goal in order for the executive branch, the legislative branch, the state superintendent's office to be able to work together to achieve what we want to achieve. My vision of a 21st century education may be a little bit different than Molly's is, and a little bit different emphasis than what Molly's is. First, one of the things I think we need to do is we need to return control of the classroom to our teachers and provide the support that they need to achieve their goals. Because ultimately, our teachers are still the ones who are getting the job done in the classrooms, and we need to give them the opportunity to do that. I've worked in high poverty schools ever since I came back to South Carolina in 2005, and I've been successful with my students despite the high poverty levels, despite where they come from, despite the fact that I've had some students in my classes who couldn't read beyond the 3rd or 4th grade level. We figured out a way to teach them the things that they needed to learn, and we need to give that kind of control back to our teachers. Part of a 21st century education, we need to learn to embrace 21st century technology. But we need to do it in new and innovative ways, not do it the way we're doing it right now. Because right now, we're taking a smart board and simply replacing a whiteboard with it. We're taking an overhead projector and replacing it with an LCD projector. But those tools are still being used in the same way they've always been used. There's nothing innovative or creative in the way they're being used by most teachers. We need to help develop innovative ways of using that technology and help the teachers learn how to use it. And I'm open to using Facebook and Twitter and social media of all forms to deliver curriculum to our students, not just using virtual school opportunities to extend education to rural areas and help them do that, but using all the technology in as many different ways as we can. But we've got to be creative in doing that. We must provide resources to ensure that every student has demonstrated competency and fluency in fundamental skills that will be required at the next level of education. And I think this is one of the key parts of what we need to look at in our education system moving forward. We need to de-emphasize testing. We are doing far too much testing in our schools. It's taking way too much time. I was my school's test coordinator last year, and I calculated that we lost 5 weeks of instructional time due to testing, not even counting the actual state test that the students took. That was all preparation for the test and district benchmark test and this test and that test, and all the data was collected, but we lost all of that instructional time. And I see a school process where we test students every 3 years, 3rd grade, 6th grade, 9th grade. And then we use that data that we collect at those points to help those students who are behind grade level at those points to bring them up to the level they need to be at. So a student's not getting to 6th grade still reading at the 2nd grade level. A student's not getting to high school still reading at the 5th or 6th grade level. So we've got to take those resources we save on testing and put them back into helping our students progress. So that's all part of what we need to look at in a 21st century education. But again, like Molly said, we all need to have that vision, and we would all need to come together and sit down at the table and say, okay, what are all the parameters we need to look at? How are we going to do this? The research is already out there as to what works. And some of the things that SC Transform is doing are things that do work. And we need to pull those together. But we need to get them out into our schools much more rapidly than what we're doing right now. Because right now we're just piecemealing change in districts and it doesn't work. We've got to get that big picture, say what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, and then everybody start moving towards that vision together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the last question for me for this round, we'll start with Dr. Thompson. Easy question. Why are you the best person for this job? It should be an easy question.
You have the bio. I hope that you spent time reading it. As you go through it, you can tell that we, each one of us, been in the education profession for a long time. Our directions are a little different. Mine has taken me from school administration into higher ed. That's provided me the opportunity to serve in teaching and administrative positions, and then to turn around and spend most of the rest of my career training others to do the same type of things. Served as mentors for a number of administrators around the state. I continue to work with schools around the state implementing math science programs. I was involved in the statewide systemic initiative back years ago, writing the leadership part of that so that we could guarantee, as we were trying to improve the effectiveness of teaching of math and science, that those teachers got the support that they needed in the classroom from the administrators by taking them through a program that helped them to understand what the teachers were, what we were trying to achieve with the teachers. My career has allowed me to not only study leadership, but to teach it, to research it, to write about it, and to work with others to make sure that they're doing the kinds of things that we need in our schools to make sure that we have high quality education, or providing high quality education for every child. As I indicated before, those three principles, you have to believe that children come first, and that our children deserve a high quality education, that a leader has to be unselfish and honest. And I think that I exemplify all of those things, and that I understand the State Department of Education, and I can return the State Department of Education to not only the monitoring entity that it is, but the service entity that seems to have fallen short over the past 3 years. My philosophy is that if you ask people to do something, if you ask our schools to be excellent schools, then you have to give them the resources needed in order to do that. And that's the State Department's responsibility, to make sure that they have the technical assistance, that they have the know-how to do the job that we're asking them to do, and the professional development to help them understand what you're trying to do and give them the resources to get the job done.
Thank you very much. Mr. Murray?
Well, I've been researching public education since I was 6 years old, as I went to 13 different schools from 1st grade through 12th grade. So I got a lot of experience looking at a lot of different environments and looking at a lot of different ways things are done. But I also have followed a different career path, in that I went into post-secondary administration first. And started as a financial aid administrator, and then got into curriculum development and other aspects of post-secondary operations. But one question kept coming up in that process was, the quality of the students that we were getting in our schools, and the difficulty they were having in transitioning from public school education into a college education, because they didn't have the reading skills, the writing skills, the math skills that they needed to be successful. So we had to do a lot of remediation. And I kept asking the question, why? This shouldn't be happening. So when the opportunity came up in 1999 for me to move from post-secondary education into the public schools, because my son's school was desperately in need of math and science teachers, I took that opportunity as a way of extending my research and trying to figure out what the problems were in public education. So since 1999, that's exactly what I've been doing in our schools, is working with students, working to try and figure out ways of solving problems, one student at a time initially, and then one class at a time, and then one school at a time. And that's what I've been doing, and now we're ready to take that to the next level. I believe my current relevant experience in schools has given me greater insights into the problems we face, because I'm still in the schools every day. As an athletic director and assistant principal at Orangeburg Wilkinson High School, I talk to students, I talk to teachers, I talk to parents, I talk to other administrators every day about the problems we face in our schools. And we talk about what we can do. And we talk about all the things that are keeping us from being able to get the things done that we need to get done. So I've got that relevant experience. I'm not concerned about my political career. I am concerned about getting the job done. My wife would be very happy if my political career ended now. So she would be very happy to have me at home. Finally, I would approach this job as if I'm returning to the classroom 4 years from now, which is very likely to happen. And I want to go back to a working environment that is more productive, more constructive, less restrictive, more innovative, and more in tune with the individual interests and needs of our student population. And I think that perspective makes me the best leader for education in the state of South Carolina, because I will take that perspective to the State Department of Education, and I will make sure that every member of the staff at the State Department of Education has that same perspective. How do you want the school to look? How do you want the school to run, as if you were there today and tomorrow and next week and next year? And I think that's a very important perspective to take to the State Department.
Thank you very much. Molly?
Well, when I was a little girl growing up on a dairy farm in Saluda County, I never dreamed that I would have this opportunity. And I have to confess, as I went through my career, you know, doors open, and if you're willing to step through them, you never know what's going to happen. And that's sort of how my professional career went. I had 18 years as a music teacher, principal, ran for the state legislature, got elected, got an opportunity when Inez Tenenbaum was elected state superintendent of education to go and work with her. I didn't even know her, and she invited me to come and work with her. Never dreamed how it would change my trajectory in my professional life. I served 6 years there as deputy superintendent at the department, still working with the legislature and education committees, Chamber of Commerce. Then I moved into this wonderful job that I have now as director of the School Administrators Association. I've been there for 10 years, still working with and representing educators, working with the legislature, business community, never really dreaming about what it was preparing me for. And I really think it has all come together to prepare me for this moment, to be the next state superintendent of education. I have relationships with the business community. I have the trust, I believe, of the education community. And that's something that has not been as strong as it needed to be in our current leadership. And I'm doing this out of service because I love our state, and I really am optimistic. I believe that we do have, I differ from my colleagues here, there are some great things that are going on in education, and there have been some significant changes over the last few years of how we're delivering instruction to students through project-based learning, through more collaborative learning, where the teacher serves as a facilitator and students are in charge of their learning. And I believe that I am in a position to spotlight that and to gain the support of the legislature and the executive branch to move our state forward. So I feel prepared. This was not on my bucket list of things to do. I was kind of happy in what I was doing, but I really feel I'm prepared and offering myself for service for the state in this role.
Thank you very much.